Good morning. There's our buddy up there. Great legs. Smoking hot blood. That's Brewster. It's a gorgeous day out here. February 29th, so it's a leap day. Feels like an April morning though. Probably about 40. Not all that warm. I've got gloves on. But you can feel spring in the air. Spectacular. Now, my father-in-law gave me the David McCullough, John Adams biography for Christmas. I opened it up the other day, read a bit. Somehow John Adams gets overlooked. This guy doesn't get his due. George Washington's the first president, great military hero. Thomas Jefferson writes the Declaration, big genius. Ben Franklin invents all sorts of stuff. Everybody but Adams gets his accolades. Adams, from what I can tell in this biography, he's the workhorse of the American Revolution. He's the guy who rolls up his sleeves and simply gets it done. Take the Declaration of Independence itself. Adams more or less recruits Jefferson to do it. Jefferson does it. Does a great job. No one would dispute that. Afterwards, he waits around for a couple weeks and then he leaves. He goes home. All sorts of stuff is going on. The British are on the march. The American military is in disarray. John Adams is trying to run the country, it seems like almost single-handedly. He asks for Jefferson's help. Jefferson says, "Nah, I'm going home." As if Adams didn't want to go home. Kind of struck me as funny. What really comes out in this biography, though, is the relationship between John Adams and Abigail Adams. Lots of letters back and forth. How much they miss each other. And you get a sense of what a strain it was. What a sacrifice on a personal level. They've got a bunch of little kids. I think 4 little kids. One of them had died. They might have had 5. A young girl died. Abigail Adams is kind of all alone on their farm in Braintree, which is about 20 miles south of Boston, apparently. She's trying to run this place herself. And possibly the most telling example of the difficulty of life in 1776. While Adams is struggling with national issues, writing a Declaration of Independence, establishing treaties between France and Spain and the colonies, she's dealing with smallpox. Now, smallpox has been wiped off the planet Earth, thank goodness. But that didn't happen until about 30 or 40 years ago. Before then, smallpox killed millions every single year. People have been battling it for centuries, millennia. And apparently, there was an outbreak of smallpox in Boston in 1776. With everything else that was going on, suddenly people were dropping like flies because of smallpox. So Abigail Adams faced a very tough decision. There were some people who knew just through experience what inoculation was. The concept that if you gave yourself a mild dose of the disease, you would be protected against a more lethal version. I didn't really understand why. I just knew from experience that this could work. This is a technique that had been used for centuries. I think the Chinese, the Indians had been doing it. It was actually called variolation. And what you did, when smallpox was out and about, when people were dying of smallpox, you made an incision in your arm. You took a knife, you cut your arm or your leg, I suppose. Okay, let's go, buddy. I should say you had a doctor do this. It's not like you did it to yourself. You had a doctor do this. The doctor put a slice in your arm. And then he took a goose quill, or I suppose a chicken quill, sharpened it, and he jabbed it into the pustule of a person with smallpox. And he scooped out some of the goo, some of the pus, some of the smallpox excretion. And then he took that and he smeared it into the cut on your arm, giving you smallpox. Now what people have noticed is that if you acquired smallpox in this manner, for whatever reason, it was far less deadly than if you acquired it in the typical manner. Typically, smallpox becomes airborne. Somebody sneezes or coughs. They let out millions upon millions of little droplets, which all have bits of the smallpox virus in them. You then breathe that in, gets into your lungs, your nose, whatever. You've now got the smallpox virus in you. And once it's in you, it just multiplies. That's all it does. It just makes more little smallpox viruses until you've literally got billions or trillions of them in your body, and it kills you. Or not. Maybe you'll survive. Lots of people did. About 2 out of 3 people do survive. But still, 1 out of 3 dies. But if you inoculate yourself in that manner, you have about a 1 in 100 chance of dying. Much better odds of surviving. So John Adams is off in Philadelphia. Abigail Adams is at home outside Boston. Smallpox is all over the place. She's afraid she's going to get it. She's afraid her kids are going to get it. So she makes a decision. She's going to take the family into Boston itself, see the doctor, she knows the guy, and have him variolate them all, giving them all smallpox. Taking the chance that none of them will die, and the 1 in 100 chance that they get a lethal form, rather than waiting to see if they do get infected, and at that point having a 1 in 3 chance of dying. Well, there was a dead deer. Oh, no, Brewster, we got to come back here. Of all things, right up there in those bushes. About a week ago, Brewster was just going crazy down here, trying to smell something, He just wouldn't give it up, so eventually I kind of succumbed. I went up there with him, and sure enough, there was a dead deer. I don't know if these people had hit it with their car, or some sort of delivery truck had hit it. That seems to be gone now. Okay, come on, buddy. It's kind of weird to see a dead deer just off somebody's driveway. At any rate, imagine how difficult that decision was. You're going to give your child smallpox, but a mild version of it, in order to help him develop, or her, immunity for life. If you don't do this, they may never get smallpox. But if they do get it, well, they got a good chance of dying. Now, Adams didn't know this until after it was done. Probably a good thing. He had enough to worry about at the time. But it says a little something about the toughness of these people. The momentous decisions that they make. On a personal and a national level. I can hardly imagine making that decision. But Abigail Adams made it. One of the guys, the nickname of this child was Nabby. I think it was, I'm not sure if Nabby was a boy or girl. One of them really gets sick. The others seem to do okay, but Nabby is in big trouble. Eventually he or she pulls out of it. But man, that had to have been a real worry. The guilt or shame you might feel if Nabby then did go on and die. That I gave him or her a mild form of smallpox as a preventative measure, and it killed him or her. Oof. Man, oh man. That's a tough one. Anyway, that's just a little anecdote out of the John Adams biography. Found it kind of interesting. It's a good read. Get a newfound respect for this man. How much he, John Adams, was running the country during the Revolutionary War. We didn't even have a president yet. He's not even the president of the Continental Congress. I think John Hancock was at that time, but it's really John Adams who's running the show. Everybody else is leaving Philadelphia, going home, like Thomas Jefferson. But Adams stays on and shoulders the burden. What a debt we owe that guy. John Adams. See you tomorrow on Waggy Dog.